The patent office clerk's eyes widened as she scanned my documents. Miss Chen, this is revolutionary. The applications alone could transform renewable energy storage worldwide. I smiled, watching through the office window as my sister Emma pulled up in Mom's Mercedes, no doubt ready to submit my invention. She was exactly 30 minutes too late. When can I expect the approval process to begin? I asked calmly. Given the significance and your complete documentation, we can fast-track this. You'll have preliminary approval within weeks. Emma burst through the doors, her designer heels clicking against marble floors, her face flushed with urgency. She froze when she saw me, confusion flickering across her perfectly made-up features. Lily, what are you doing here? I gathered my stamped documents, each page bearing my name as the sole inventor. Securing my future, Emma. Something I should have done 17 years ago. The memory of my death was seared into my brain like a brand. Lying in that hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting me to machines that beeped out the rhythm of my failing heart. I was 34 years old, dying of stress-induced cardiac arrest, broke and alone. The nurses whispered about how sad it was. No family, no visitors, just a worn-out woman who'd worked herself into an early grave. But I remembered everything, every single betrayal. It started when I was 17, a senior at Westwood Academy, the most prestigious private school in the state. I'd spent 2 years developing a revolutionary energy storage system, a hybrid capacitor that could charge in seconds and hold power for months. I'd sacrificed sleep, skipped meals, poured every ounce of my intellect into that project. It was my ticket out, my chance at a full scholarship to MIT, my escape from a family that had never seen me as anything more than a convenient shadow to my golden child sister. Emma was everything I wasn't. Beautiful, charming, popular. She was Mom's favorite, Dad's princess, the daughter they paraded at country club events while I stayed home, supposedly not comfortable in social settings. The truth was simpler. I made them look bad. Too bookish, too plain, too ordinary next to Emma's radiance. I didn't mind, not really. I had my science, my dreams, my plan to build something bigger than their small, status-obsessed world. Then came the science fair. I'd worked until 3 a.m. the night before, perfecting my presentation. The prototype sat in our garage workshop, the one space Dad had given me, probably because it kept me out of sight. I'd fallen asleep at my desk, exhausted but triumphant, my presentation cards scattered around me. I woke up to screaming. "You selfish bitch!" Emma's voice shrieked through the house. "You ruined everything!" I stumbled downstairs to find my prototype smashed on the garage floor, my 2 years of work destroyed. Emma stood over it, mascara running down her face, her hands bleeding from where she'd apparently grabbed the broken glass and metal. "Emma, what? Tyler broke up with me," she sobbed. "He said I'm too high maintenance, too spoiled, that I never accomplish anything on my own. This is your fault. You made me look bad, always winning your stupid science awards while I—" "Emma." Mom's voice cut through the hysteria, cold and sharp. She stood in the doorway in her silk robe, looking at the destroyed prototype without a shred of sympathy for me. "Go upstairs. Clean yourself up." "But Mom—" "Now." Emma fled, still sobbing. Mom turned to me and I saw my future in her eyes. "You'll build another one." "Mom, it took me 2 years. The fair is tomorrow. Then you'll work fast." She stepped closer and I instinctively backed up. "And Emma will present it." "What? No, absolutely not. This is my project, my scholarship." The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. My head snapped to the side, my cheek burning. "You'll build another one," Mom repeated, her voice deadly calm. "Emma will present it. She needs this, Lily. Her college applications are weak. This science fair, a win here, it could change everything for her, for this family." "What about me? What about my scholarship?" "You?" Mom laughed, the sound bitter and cold. "Lily, sweetheart, you're smart. You'll figure something out." "But Emma needs help." and family helps each other. I wanted to scream that Emma had just destroyed my work in a jealous rage. I wanted to point out that this was theft, fraud, that it would ruin both our futures. But I was 17, exhausted, and I'd learned long ago that fighting mom was like fighting a brick wall, painful and pointless. So I rebuilt it. I worked for 22 hours straight, my hands shaking, my eyes burning. I recreated 2 years of work in one night because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. I told myself that maybe I could still present it myself, that mom would see reason in the morning. Emma presented it at the science fair. She wore a designer dress, smiled her pageant smile, and read from my note cards with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted she deserved everything she got. The judges loved her. She won first place, a full scholarship to Princeton, and a feature in the local news. I watched from the audience, my heart dying in my chest. That was just the beginning. In college, I worked 3 jobs to pay my tuition at a state school while Emma lived in luxury at Princeton, on my scholarship, earned with my invention. I sent mom and dad updates on my research, hoping for a word of encouragement, a hint of pride. They never responded. All their calls, all their money, all their love went to Emma. When I graduated with highest honors and a job offer from a tech startup, I thought maybe things would change. I came home for Christmas, excited to share my success. Emma had just graduated, no job prospects, no plans, but mom and dad threw her a massive party. When I mentioned my job offer, dad just grunted, "That's nice, Lily," and went back to toasting Emma's bright future. The startup failed 3 years later. I lost everything. I sent one desperate email to my parents asking for a small loan to cover rent while I found new work. Dad responded with a single line, "Emma's wedding is expensive. We can't help you right now." I wasn't invited to the wedding. The years blurred together after that. I worked contract jobs, never quite getting ahead, always one emergency from disaster. Meanwhile, Emma's life glittered on social media. A tech executive husband, a mansion, luxury vacations, everything my invention had bought her. Then at 32, I saw the news article. Revolutionary energy storage system nets millions for innovator Emma Chen Whitmore. She'd patented my invention. My 17-year-old prototype, the one she'd presented at the science fair, had finally attracted serious commercial interest. Emma was being hailed as a genius inventor. She'd sold the patent for $8 million. I tried to fight it. I spent 2 years and every penny I had left on lawyers trying to prove I was the real inventor, but I had no proof. No dated notebooks that mom hadn't thrown away. No witnesses who'd cared enough to remember. No evidence that would hold up against Emma's squeaky clean scholarship application and 15-year-old science fair records. The stress destroyed me. Literally. My heart gave out at 34 and I died alone, broke, and branded a jealous liar by my own family. Then I woke up. I was 17 again, lying at my desk, my presentation cards scattered around me. The clock read 2:47 a.m. In 13 minutes, Emma would discover that Tyler had dumped her. In 14 minutes, she'd destroy my prototype. But not this time. I grabbed my phone and started recording. I filmed everything. The prototype, my notebooks, my computer files with their date stamps. I backed everything up to cloud storage, emailed copies to myself, created a paper trail that couldn't be destroyed or denied. At 3 a.m. exactly, I heard Emma's scream. This time, when I went downstairs, I wasn't a victim. I was a time traveler with 17 years of bitter knowledge and a burning desire for justice. Emma smashed the prototype right on schedule, her face contorted with rage and pain. I let her. I even filmed it, making sure to capture her face clearly. Mom delivered her ultimatum, slapped me, demanded I rebuild it for Emma, and I smiled. No. Mom blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I held up my phone. I have videos of Emma destroying my property. I have 2 years of dated documentation proving this invention is mine. And if you try to make me give it to her, I'll go to the school board, the science fair committee, and the media. I'll show them everything. How the perfect Chen family is built on theft and abuse. You wouldn't dare. But Mom's face had gone pale. Watch me. I turned to Emma, still sobbing on the floor. Tyler broke up with you because you're exactly what he said, spoiled, entitled, and empty. And you know what? You'll never be anything more than that because mom and dad will keep enabling you instead of making you work for anything. Lily, dad's voice came from the stairs. I'd forgotten he was even home. He was always so absent, so checked out of anything that didn't involve bragging about Emma. That's enough. Apologize to your sister. Why? I asked. What will you do if I don't? Ignore me? Treat me like I don't exist? Dad, you already do that. You've been doing it my entire life. So forgive me if your disapproval doesn't scare me anymore. I walked past all of them, grabbed my car keys, and drove to a 24-hour copy center. I printed everything, created a physical record that couldn't be deleted. Then I drove to my mentor, Dr. Sarah Reeves' house. Dr. Reeves was the only teacher who'd ever really seen me, who'd encouraged my work, who'd written my recommendation letters even though I'd never had money for her advanced classes. She answered her door at 4 a.m. in her bathrobe, took one look at my face, and let me in. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. Not the time travel part, I wasn't that crazy, but everything else. The years of neglect, Emma's destruction of my work, Mom's ultimatum. Dr. Reeves listened, her expression growing darker. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Do you trust me, Lily? Yes. Then, let me make some calls. By the time I got home at 7 a.m., my phone was ringing off the hook. Dr. Reeves had contacted the science fair committee, the school board, and a patent attorney friend. She'd sent them all my documentation. Mom and Dad were waiting for me, their faces furious. What have you done? Mom hissed. Saved myself, I said simply. The next week was chaos. The school launched an investigation into Emma's academic record. Turned out this wasn't her first time taking credit for someone else's work, just the first time she'd been caught. The science fair committee banned her from competing. Most importantly, the patent attorney told me something that changed everything. You're a minor with documented proof of invention and a clear timeline. If you file for patent protection now, before any fair or public presentation, you lock in your rights as the sole inventor. No one can steal this from you. So that's exactly what I did. I withdrew from the science fair entirely. It was never about the prize, after all. It was about the patent, the money, the future. And I was going to secure all three. Mom and Dad threatened, cajoled, and finally tried to guilt-trip me. Emma's future is ruined, Mom sobbed. How can you do this to your own sister? Easy, said I learned from the best. You taught me that family only matters when it's convenient, that love is conditional, and that some people are worth more than others. Emma's just learning that she's not the valuable one anymore. They kicked me out the day after graduation. Dr. Reeves let me move into her guest house. I spent that summer working 2 jobs and refining my prototype. By fall, I had a provisional patent and acceptance to MIT. My application was so strong after I explained the full story that they gave me a full scholarship plus a research stipend. Emma went to community college. Mom and Dad paid for it, of course, but their money couldn't buy her a reputation or a work ethic. The patent approval came through 6 months later. By then, I was already fielding calls from venture capitalists and energy companies. My hybrid capacitor was everything I'd known it would be. Revolutionary, profitable, and entirely mine. I was 19 years old when I sold my first licensing deal. $1 million for a 5-year exclusive license to a major tech company with royalties on every unit produced. I used half to pay for Dr. Reeves' dream vacation. A month in Europe, first class. She'd saved my life. It was the least I could do. The rest I invested, reinvested, and parlayed into more patents, more inventions. I'd lived a full lifetime of failure. I knew every mistake to avoid, every opportunity to chase. I didn't just succeed, I dominated. By 23, I had 12 patents. By 25, I'd founded my own company. By 28, I was a multimillionaire being featured in Forbes and TechCrunch, speaking at conferences, inspiring young women in STEM. Everything Emma had stolen in my first life, I claimed tenfold in my second. But success, I learned, wasn't just about money or fame. It was about justice. Emma tried to contact me over the years, first through emails I blocked, then through social media I ignored, finally in person. I was 30 now, 13 years after my rebirth, giving a keynote speech at a renewable energy conference in Manhattan. I'd built an empire on that first invention, expanding into solar integration, grid systems, and battery technology. My company, Chen Technologies, employed 3,000 people and was valued at over $2 billion. Emma found me in the hotel bar afterward. I almost didn't recognize her. The beautiful, confident girl from my memories had become a tired woman with brittle, dyed blonde hair and too much makeup covering stress lines. She wore a cheap business suit and carried an off-brand purse. "Lily," her voice cracked. "Please, I just need 5 minutes." My security guard moved to intercept, but I waved him off. "It's fine, Marcus. This is my sister." Emma's eyes filled with tears at the word sister. It was the first time I'd claimed the relationship in over a decade. We sat at a corner table. I ordered a scotch, 25-year-old Macallan, the kind that cost more than Emma probably made in a week. She ordered water. "You look successful," she said finally. "I am." "I always knew you were smart." "Brilliant, really." I was so jealous of you, Lily, all the time. You made everything look so easy, and I had to work so hard just to be mediocre. "So you stole from me." She flinched. "Yes, I did, and I'm sorry. I've been sorry for years, but you won't answer my calls. You blocked me everywhere, and I needed to say it to your face. I'm sorry." I sipped my scotch, studying her. In my first life, I'd never gotten this apology. I'd died branded a liar, my truth dismissed as jealous delusion. This moment, right here, was worth more than all my billions. "Why now?" I asked. "Why apologize now?" "Because I finally understand." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "I have a daughter. She's 5. And I look at her, at how smart and curious she is, and I think about what Mom did to you, what I did to you, and I'm terrified I'll do the same thing. I'm terrified I'll ruin her because I'm so fucked up myself." "You probably will," I said bluntly. "Trauma cascades through generations. Mom learned it from her mother, passed it to us. You'll pass it to your daughter unless you do the work to stop it." "I know." Tears ran down Emma's face, smearing her mascara. "That's why I'm here. Not to ask for money or favors or anything else. Just to tell you that you were right. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us." I finished my scotch, let the silence stretch. In my first life, I'd have given anything to hear these words. They would have healed something broken in me, filled the hole where my family's love should have been. But I'd lived 2 lives now. I'd learned that some wounds don't heal, and some people don't deserve forgiveness just because they finally feel bad about their cruelty. "Thank you for the apology," I said finally. "I appreciate that it took courage to come here." Hope flickered in Emma's eyes. "But I don't forgive you." The hope died. "Lily, you stole 2 years of my work. You profited from my genius while I suffered. And you know what the worst part was? Not the theft, not even the betrayal. It was the erasure. You let everyone believe that brilliance was yours. You smiled and accepted praise for my innovation, and you never once thought about what that cost me." I was 17. "So was I." My voice cracked like a whip. "I was 17 and more mature than you'll ever be." Age isn't an excuse for cruelty, Emma. It's just an explanation. "Then what do you want from me?" Emma asked desperately. "How do I make this right?" "You can't." I stood, gathering my things. "There is no making this right. There's just living with what you did and trying not to inflict it on the next generation. Break the cycle, Emma. Be better to your daughter than Mom was to me. That's the only redemption you'll ever get." I left her sitting there, crying into her water glass. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, it just felt necessary, like lancing a wound that had festered for too long. Mom and dad tried to reach out too in their own way. A Facebook friend request from mom, an email from dad's assistant about reconnecting. I ignored them all. Then 2 years ago, 15 years after my rebirth, dad had a stroke. Mom called me from the hospital, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Lily, please, he's asking for you. I almost said no, almost hung up. But I thought about that 5-year-old niece I'd never met, Emma's daughter, and the cycle of trauma. Sometimes you had to close loops to stop them from repeating. I flew home to California, to the city I'd left at 18 and never looked back. Dad looked old, ancient. The stroke had paralyzed his left side, slurred his speech. Mom sat beside him, holding his hand, and she looked old too. When had they gotten so small? Lily. Dad's voice was thick, barely understandable. Thank you for coming. I sat on the opposite side of the bed, careful not to touch. What did you want to say? I'm proud of you. Each word was a struggle. Always was. Just didn't know how to show it. That's convenient, I said flatly. Waiting until you're dying to suddenly discover parental feelings. Lily, Mom whispered. Please, he's trying to assuage his guilt, I finished. To die with a clear conscience. But here's the thing, Dad. I don't care if you're proud. I stopped needing your approval when I was 17 years old, and you stood by while Mom slapped me for refusing to let Emma steal my work. That's not, Dad coughed, struggled. Not how I remember it. Of course it isn't. You've rewritten history to make yourselves the heroes, or at least not the villains. But I remember the truth. I remember every moment of being invisible in my own home, every scrap of affection you gave Emma that should have been split between us, every time you chose her comfort over my dignity. I stood. I came because I wanted to make sure I'd said everything I needed to say. So, here it is. You were terrible parents to me. Not abusive enough for social services, but cruel enough to damage me in ways I'm still unpacking. You favored one child so blatantly that you destroyed both our chances at a healthy sibling relationship. And you did it all while congratulating yourselves on being good people because you provided food and shelter and a fancy private school. We did our best, Mom said, but her voice wavered. Your best was shit. I grabbed my purse. And the worst part is that you knew. Some part of you always knew you were failing me and you just didn't care enough to stop. Because fixing it would have meant confronting Emma's spoiled entitlement, and that was too hard. Ignoring me was easier. Where does this end? Dad asked, tears running down his paralyzed face. How long do we have to pay? You don't pay, I said. That's not how this works. You just live with what you did. You die knowing that your brilliant daughter, the one who could have been your pride and joy, wants nothing to do with you. That's your consequence, and honestly, it's lighter than you deserve. I left. Dad died 3 weeks later. I didn't go to the funeral, but I did set up a trust fund for Emma's daughter. $500,000, accessible only for education, with strict conditions. Emma couldn't touch it, couldn't borrow against it, couldn't use it to maintain her lifestyle. It was purely for her daughter's future. I also sent Emma a letter with the trust fund documents. Emma, this money is not for you. It's not forgiveness or reconciliation. It's an investment in breaking the cycle. Your daughter deserves better than we got. Make sure she gets it. Be the mother to her that Mom never was to me. And if you can't do that, if you start to favor a future child over her or treat her like you treated me, this trust is structured so that she can petition for early access and emancipation. Don't fuck this up. Lily, now at 33, 1 year younger than I'd been when I died the first time, I stood in my penthouse office overlooking Manhattan. Chen Technologies was about to go public. Conservative estimates put my personal net worth at over $5 billion after the IPO. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Emma. I know you probably won't read this, but I wanted you to know Maya is starting first grade. She's reading at a fourth grade level and wants to be a scientist like her Aunt Lily. We watch your TED Talks together. I'm doing better. Therapy, parenting classes, trying to be the mom she deserves. Thank you for the trust fund. Thank you for caring about her even when you hate me. I'm sorry. I'll always be sorry. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. But I did save the part about Maya wanting to be a scientist. I filed it away in the folder I kept of accomplishments that mattered. Not the patents or the billions, but the smaller victories. The messages from young women who'd been inspired by my story. The scholarships I'd endowed for girls in STEM. The mentorship program I'd founded. The fact that somewhere a little girl named Maya was learning that brilliant women didn't have to be erased or stolen from. They could be celebrated. They could be themselves. That was my real revenge. Not just reclaiming my own stolen future, but making sure the next generation wouldn't have to fight as hard as I did. The IPO happened on a Tuesday. I rang the opening bell at NASDAQ, surrounded by my team, brilliant engineers and scientists I'd personally recruited and mentored, many of them women and minorities who'd been overlooked by other companies. Dr. Reeves stood beside me, now retired but still my closest advisor. Your parents would be proud, she said softly. Fuck them, I replied just as softly. This was never about making them proud. Then what was it about? I thought about 17-year-old me, dying at 34, alone and broken. I thought about the second chance I'd gotten, the knowledge I'd used, the empire I'd built. Proof, I said finally. Proof that I was always worth more than they believed. Proof that Emma never deserved what she stole. Proof that justice, even delayed, eventually comes. The bell rang. My company's stock price soared, and I stood there watching my value rise in real time, knowing that every dollar was a repudiation of everyone who'd underestimated me. 3 months after the IPO, I received a package at my office. No return address, just a postmark from my hometown. Inside was a worn notebook, my original research notebook from when I was 15, the one I'd thought Mom had thrown away. Pages and pages of my handwriting, my equations, my breakthrough ideas that had led to the hybrid capacitor. Tucked inside was a note on floral stationery. Lily, I found this in the attic while cleaning out the house. We're selling. Too big for just me now. I'd forgotten I kept it. Maybe I knew even then that I might need proof someday that you really were as brilliant as you seemed. Or maybe I'm just a coward who hid evidence of my own cruelty. You were right about everything. I was a terrible mother to you. I let my insecurity and vanity destroy any chance we had at a real relationship. I chose Emma over you again and again, and I told myself it was because she needed me more, but the truth is simpler. She was easier. She reflected well on me. You were too smart, too independent, too much yourself. You made me feel inadequate, so I punished you for it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to have this notebook. It's yours. It was always yours. I watched your IPO on TV. You were magnificent. You've become everything I tried to prevent you from being, and I'm glad I failed. Your father died knowing we'd lost you. I'll die knowing it too. That's our punishment, and it's fitting. I'm sorry, Lily, for all of it. Mom. I held the notebook in my hands, this ghost of my past, proof that I'd been brilliant even at 15. Before Emma's first theft, before the science fair, before everything. I should have been angry. This notebook would have changed everything in my first life. If I'd had it during my lawsuit against Emma, I could have proven my case, won my millions, died less bitter. But I wasn't angry. I just felt tired. I called Dr. Reeves. My mom sent me my old research notebook, the original one from when I was 15. That's good, isn't it? Proof of I don't need proof anymore, I interrupted. That's what I finally realized. I don't need her acknowledgement or Emma's apology or Dad's deathbed pride. I don't need any of them. Then what do you need, Lily? Nothing, I said, and realized it was true. I don't need anything from them. I already won. I hung up, walked to my office window, and looked out at the city I'd conquered. Somewhere out there, Emma was struggling to be a better mother. Somewhere out there, Mom was alone, in a house too big for one person. Somewhere out there, Maya was learning to love science. And here I was, in my penthouse, holding a notebook full of proof I no longer needed. I thought about my first death, alone, broke, bitter. I thought about this life, successful, wealthy, triumphant. Which one was the real revenge? The public victory or the private peace? Maybe it was both. Maybe revenge wasn't a single moment of comeuppance, but a long, slow process of building a life so good that your abusers finally understood what they'd lost. I kept the notebook. I didn't respond to Mom's letter, but I kept it too, filed away with Emma's text about Maya. Not as treasures, but as artifacts. Evidence of a past I'd transcended. A month later, I was giving a lecture at MIT, my alma mater, the school that had saved me, when a young woman approached me during the Q&A. Dr. Chen, I'm a sophomore here on scholarship, studying materials engineering. I just wanted to say that your story, growing up underestimated, having your work stolen, fighting to prove yourself, it inspired me to keep going when I wanted to quit. So, thank you. She was around 20, bright-eyed and nervous, reminding me so much of my younger self that it hurt. What's your name? I asked. Sarah Liu. Well, Sarah Liu, are you free for coffee after this lecture? Her eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously, I'm always looking for promising researchers. And something tells me you've got what it takes. She nodded eagerly, and I saw my own past reflected in her hope, but also a better future, one where talented women didn't have to fight alone. That evening, over coffee, Sarah told me about her own family struggles. Different details, same shape, parents who didn't understand her ambitions, siblings who were favored, a constant battle to prove her worth. Does it get easier? She asked finally. I thought about my two lives, my deaths and rebirths, the long road from victimhood to victory. Yes, I said, but not because they change. Because you do. You stop needing their validation. You stop measuring your worth by their standards. You build something so undeniably yours that no one can take credit for it. Is that what you did? That's exactly what I did. And now I'm offering you the chance to do the same. How would you like a summer research position at Chen Technologies? Sarah started crying right there in the coffee shop, and I handed her napkins and remembered being 17, desperate for someone to see me, to value me, to give me a chance. Dr. Reeves had done that for me. Now I could do it for others. That was the real victory, not just surviving, not just thriving, but creating a world where the next generation of brilliant women wouldn't have to fight as hard as I did. 5 years later, 18 years after my rebirth, making me 38 in this life, I stood in the Oval Office accepting the National Medal of Technology and Innovation from the president. Dr. Chen's revolutionary work in renewable energy storage has transformed the global fight against climate change, the president read from the citation. Her hybrid capacitor technology has enabled the widespread adoption of solar and wind power, reducing carbon emissions by an estimated 2 billion tons annually. Her company's commitment to ethical business practices and workforce diversity has set a new standard for the tech industry, and her mentorship of young women in STEM has inspired a generation of innovators. The medal was heavy in my hands, solid gold, bearing the seal of the United States. I thought about holding my destroyed prototype at 17, my hands shaking with exhaustion and despair. I thought about dying alone at 34 in my first life, convinced I'd failed. If I could send a message back to that girl, that first life version of me who'd given up hope, I'd tell her, hold on. Hold on because justice is coming. Hold on because you're stronger than they'll ever know. Hold on because your revenge will be sweet beyond imagining. Not because you'll hurt them, but because you'll transcend them so completely that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. After the ceremony, I checked my phone. A text from an unknown number. Dr. Chen, this is Maya Chen Whitmore. I'm Emma's daughter. I'm 15 now, starting high school, and I want to be an engineer like you. Mom says you probably won't respond, but she also says it's important to try anyway, to put yourself out there even when you're scared. So I'm trying. Would you ever be willing to meet me? I have so many questions about your work, your life, everything. I understand if you say no. but I hope you say yes. Maya. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about cycles of trauma and redemption, about innocent children caught in their parents' failures, about the fact that I was 18 years into my second chance and still learning how to forgive. Not forgive Emma, not forgive my parents, but forgive myself for the bitterness I still carried, the anger that occasionally flared when I least expected it. I typed a response. Maya, I'd be happy to meet you. How about next Saturday for lunch in the city? Bring your questions, all of them. Aunt Lily. I hit send before I could overthink it. Maybe this was the final piece of my revenge, refusing to let my family's toxicity poison the next generation. Emma had stolen from me, but Maya was innocent. And if I could give her what my family never gave me, genuine support, honest encouragement, real mentorship, then maybe I could finally close the loop. Saturday came. I met Maya at a restaurant in Manhattan, my heart unexpectedly nervous. What if she was like Emma? What if she was entitled, vapid, everything I'd hated about my sister? She wasn't. Maya arrived exactly on time, dressed in jeans and a faded NASA t-shirt, carrying a worn backpack stuffed with notebooks. She looked like me at say, 15, too serious, too intense, eyes that saw more than people expected. Dr. Chen, Aunt Lily, thank you so much for meeting me. She practically vibrated with excitement. I have about 1,000,000 questions, but Mom made me promise to act normal and not overwhelm you, so I'm trying to be cool, but I'm really bad at being cool. And breathe, I said, smiling despite myself. I don't need cool, I need genuine. Ask your questions. She pulled out a notebook filled with questions about my research, my patents, my company. Smart questions. Questions that showed she'd done her homework, that she understood not just what I'd built, but how and why. We talked for 3 hours. About science, about business, about being a woman in STEM, and finally, inevitably, about family. Mom told me what she did to you, Maya said quietly, picking at her dessert. Stealing your project, being terrible, everything. She said you have every right to hate her, and I'd understand if you hate me too, by association. I don't hate you, Maya. You didn't do anything wrong. But you hate Mom? Did I? I examined my feelings, these complex layers built up over 2 lifetimes. I don't hate her anymore, I said finally. I hate what she did. I hate what I lost because of her actions. But Emma herself, she's just a sad, broken person who made terrible choices and has to live with them. That's punishment enough. She talks about you all the time, Maya said. About how brilliant you were, how she ruined it, how you deserved better. Sometimes I think she hates herself more than you ever hated her. Good, I said and meant it. She should. Not in a self-destructive way, but in a clearly see your failures and vow to do better way. Is she doing better? With me? Maya nodded. Yeah, she's a good mom. Not perfect, but good. She encourages my science, never makes me feel bad for being smart. Doesn't compare me to anyone. She's trying really hard to break the cycle like you told her to. Then she's doing the only thing that matters. Maya hesitated, then pulled out a small box. She sent this for you. Made me promise to give it to you. Said you'd probably throw it away, but she wanted to try anyway. Inside was the first place ribbon from the science fair. The one Emma had won with my project, the one that had started everything. There was a note attached. This was never mine. I'm sorry it took me 23 years to admit it. I held the ribbon, this symbol of my first great loss and my greatest humiliation. In my first life, I'd have treasured it, would have cried over finally getting recognition. In this life, it was just fabric and memory. Tell your mom I appreciate the gesture, I said. But I don't need this. I have my own awards now, hundreds of them. This ribbon represents a past I've moved beyond, Assis. Should I give it back to her? No. I made a decision. You keep it. Put it somewhere you can see it. Let it remind you that's stolen. Victories are hollow. That real accomplishment comes from real work. and that your own merit will always be worth more than borrowed glory. Maya took the ribbon reverently. I won't let you down. You couldn't, I said. You're not me, and I'm not your mother or grandmother. You're going to make your own choices, your own mistakes, build your own life. Just remember, your worth isn't measured by anyone else's standards, not mine, not Emma's, not society's. You get to decide who you are. Is that what you did? Decided who you were? Twice, I said, and even though she couldn't understand the full meaning, it felt right to say. I decided twice who I would be. And both times, I chose myself. Maya became a regular part of my life after that. Not often, once a month maybe, for lunch or a lecture or a tour of my labs. I mentored her the way Dr. Reeves had mentored me, with high expectations, genuine support, and the clear message that she was seen and valued. Emma and I never reconciled. We existed in parallel lives, connected only through Maya, and that was enough. I didn't need a relationship with my sister. I just needed her to be a good mother to her daughter, and from what I saw, she was trying. Mom died when I was 42, 24 years into my second life, peacefully, in her sleep, in that too-big house she'd never left. Emma called to tell me about the funeral. I understand if you don't come, she said, but I wanted you to know. She talked about you at the end, said she was proud of what you'd accomplished, said she wished she'd been a better mother. She wasn't a better mother, I said flatly. Wishing doesn't change the past. No, but sometimes it changes the future. She left you something in her will. The something was a letter, sealed, with instructions it be given to me only after her death. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Lily, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Probably for the best. I don't think I could face you one more time and see the justified contempt in your eyes. I'm not writing to apologize again. You've heard my apologies, and they're not enough. They'll never be enough. I'm writing to tell you the truth. I could never admit while alive. You were always the daughter I was most afraid of. Emma was easy to love because she needed me. She was manageable, moldable, controllable. But you were yourself from the moment you could speak. Stubborn, brilliant, independent. You didn't need me, and that terrified me. So I punished you for it. I suppressed your light because it made me feel inadequate. I elevated Emma because her dependence made me feel necessary. And I destroyed any chance we had at a real relationship because I was too cowardly to face my own insecurities. You owe me nothing. Not forgiveness, not absolution, not even acknowledgement. But I wanted you to know, my failure as a mother to you is the greatest regret of my life. Watching you succeed, spectacularly without us, building an empire on the ruins of what we tried to deny you, is exactly what I deserve. You were always brilliant, you were always worthy, and I was always wrong. The house is yours if you want it. Sell it, burn it, whatever brings you peace. There's also a trust. Not much, everything else went to Emma's care, but enough to endow a scholarship in your name. Consider it blood money, payment for the childhood I stole. I hope you're happy, Lily. I hope you found peace. I hope somewhere, somehow, you've forgiven yourself for not being able to forgive me. Your mother, who loved you terribly and badly, but loved you nonetheless. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the trap, the manipulation, the guilt trip. But it wasn't there. It was just a dying woman's honest admission of failure. I cried, not for her, not really, but for me, for the child I'd been, desperate for this acknowledgement, for the young woman who'd died bitter and angry, for the years I'd spent building walls so high that nothing could hurt me again. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd transcended them all, built an empire, proved my worth beyond any doubt. But I'd also spent 24 years carrying anger like armor, unable to fully let go because letting go felt like losing. Mom's letter didn't absolve her. It didn't heal me. But it did finally let me close that chapter. I kept the house, not to live in, but to transform. I turned it into a residential STEM program for disadvantaged teenage girls. The bedrooms where Emma and I had slept became dormitories. Dad's study became a computer lab. The garage where my prototype was destroyed became a fabrication workshop. I named it the Second Chance Scholars Program. Every year, 20 brilliant, overlooked, underestimated girls would live there for a summer, mentored by my team, given resources and support, and the clear message: you are seen, you are valued, your brilliance belongs to you. I'm 45 now, 27 years into my second life. Chen Technologies is worth $30 billion. I have 17 patents and 4 honorary doctorates. My face has been on the cover of Time, Forbes, and Wired. I've given TED Talks, addressed Congress, advised presidents. And yet my proudest achievement is smaller. Maya graduated MIT summa cum laude last year. She's now in grad school, doing her own revolutionary work in quantum computing. Work that's entirely hers, that no one can steal, that bears only her name. Last month, she published her first patent. I framed a copy for my office. Yesterday, I received an invitation to her engagement party. She's marrying another engineer, someone who respects her brilliance, who supports her dreams. The invitation listed me as Aunt Lily, but included a handwritten note. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Thank you for refusing to let our family's toxicity define our future. Thank you for being exactly who you are. You broke the cycle. I'm living proof. Love, Maya. I RSVP'd yes immediately. Emma will be there, of course. We'll probably exchange polite small talk, nothing more. We'll never be close. We'll never repair what was broken. But we don't need to. We've both moved forward in our own ways, and Maya is the bridge we built between our separate futures. Sometimes I wonder what happened to the version of me from my first life. Is she somewhere in the universe still dying alone at 34? Or did my rebirth somehow erase that timeline, rewrite that reality? I don't know. I'll never know. But I know this. I took everything Emma stole and multiplied it 1,000-fold. I turned pain into power, betrayal into brilliance, victimhood into victory. My sister took credit for my science project, and I responded by becoming one of the most celebrated scientists of my generation. That's revenge. Not hurting them, though I could have. Not destroying them, though they deserved it. But transcending them so completely that their cruelty became footnotes in my story of triumph. I sit in my office now, looking at Maya's framed patent on my wall, and I finally feel something I haven't felt in 2 lifetimes: peace. The story could end here, with me victorious and my enemies diminished. But that's not quite true, is it? Because they're not my enemies anymore. They're just people who hurt me once, who paid for it with decades of regret, who faded into irrelevance while I blazed into glory. The real ending is this: I won. Not just the money, or the fame, or the patents. I won my own life back. I won the right to define myself, to build something beautiful from the ruins of their cruelty, to mentor the next generation into breaking cycles I had to shatter alone. Emma took credit for one project. I created an empire. She stole one victory. I earned thousands. She tried to erase me. I made myself unforgettable. In the end, she didn't just fail to stop me. She became the footnote in my story, the cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you mistake theft for talent. And me? I became exactly who I was always meant to be. Dr. Lily Chen, inventor, entrepreneur, mentor, icon. The girl who died at 34 and came back to conquer the world. The girl who refused to stay stolen. The woman who published her patent first and then published herself. Brilliant, unbreakable, and finally free. That's my story. That's my revenge. And I'm still writing new chapters every day, each one a reminder that stolen beginnings don't determine endings. I decide how my story ends, and I decided it ends in triumph.